So we already have our first question from Axel Karpenstein.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm shamelessly using the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. I hope it's not too many. And I thought I have three questions, and I split it up so that you all have something to contribute. To Mr. Kubota, I wanted to ask, since you talked about the metaverse. It was very interesting to see that it appears to be much more popular than abroad. And I know that some analysts are wondering whether the big focus of Meta, of Mark Zuckerberg on this area is still justified. Anyway, but I was wondering, since you talked about the difference also between the Japanese metaverse and the international metaverse, but it's virtual space. So I was wondering to what extent is the Japanese metaverse linked with the international metaverse? And since there are no boundaries, to what extent is that attractive? That's the question that I wanted to ask you. Mr. Meguro was also very inspiring. It seems to me that maybe one key factor is in sort of promoting this augmented or extended reality is the technology that is available for people to interact. So I was wondering, and you had images in the videos, for example. You know, we have these big headsets. Which I think tend to be over time less user-friendly than originally hoped for. So what's the future? Are there implementations that are easier to use, less intrusive perhaps? And I'm also wondering actually how people would interact in daily life, because I'm already thinking about the Japanese trains, and it's already difficult to talk on the phone on the train because people get annoyed. So I wonder what would be an extended reality where people interact with virtual space, but you do need some sort of input and output, right? What the technical solutions is. And Mr. Tanaka, in general, I was wondering, since we all talked about entertainment and games industries, what would you say are the applications beyond sort of the industries that we immediately think of? If we think about, I don't know, car manufacturing or industry like manufacturing related industries and so on. Sorry, many questions, but oh, good ones.
Okay, so the short answer, yeah, but the metaverse, the difference between the metaverse in Japan and the metaverse in globally, I think the platform is sometimes the same. The VR chat is the platform from North America, and Roblox and Fortnite is, of course, that's global platform. But I think that the concept of metaverse is a little bit different from the Japanese and global. I think that in the global or mainly the Western world, the metaverse is really good connect with Web3 things like that. So in Japan, the metaverse is a little bit separate from that idea and concept. There's some metaverses, of course, are related to Web3 and something like NFTs or blockchain or like that. But in Japan, the metaverse is a social digital space for users, and sometimes no monetization system or any economical things or like that. But the people gathering for fun or to communicate, or and also that some companies and government think what kind of value are there, so they are seeking and using that in the daily life, right? And also the link between Japanese metaverse and global things that on the same platform like VR chat, Roblox, Fortnite. Of course, that's really connecting, but you know that in Japan, Japanese really loves to talk in Japanese, right? And don't want to speak in English. So sometimes that Japanese people needs their own metaverse. So even in the global platform like VR chat, Japanese people are gathering with only Japanese people. So that thing of the high wall of the language and communication is still remains even in the digital space. But I think that the AI automatically translation or like that is very helpful for them, because that's the digital space, right? It is more useful and it's better in the digital space than compared to analog this and in real life space. Thank you.
So you ask about hardware, and then actually he's more familiar with hardware. So, but my opinion is that I don't think there's one ultimate hardware, because if you want to try immersive experience at home, it doesn't have to be small and light, right? But if you go outside, your hardware need to be small and light. So maybe in the future we can choose hardwares in a styles, because I think uh, last week Meta Connect and Meta announced AR glasses. It's called Orion, right? Which is that is so right, and then they only have 70-degree. That's huge, but 70-degree perspectives, and I think that's enough for some use cases. But this hardware, you know, i- cannot be used for immersive experiences at home. So, and then hardware is, when I think of hardwares, it's wearable devices. It's like glasses. So maybe it's good that we choose several types. Mm. Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah.
I sort of snuck two questions really in there, right? The social acceptance of interacting with this technology. What do you think about this? How would you, if people are in open public spaces and they interact with these devices,
Ah, I see, I see.
how what should happen sort of to make it?
Uh, you know, I remember the topic about the umbrella. Umbrella was invented 300 years ago in the UK, and as the first time, you know, it's very odd to look at the people with umbrella, but now it's very normal, right? It's natural if it rains. So I think same things happens in the future. And then recently, I feel, you know, when I see the people with a smartphone, wandering, looking at the screen, walking down the street, I think that's not cool, right? But people wearing smart glass or glasses with smart function, that might be cool, right? So same things happens, when we look at history. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, the last question, it was about the industry perspective. So yeah, for example, the portable volumetric system, for example, yes, last year we went to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, and which is a very large hospital, and we wanted to use the system for the simulation-based healthcare training. They were planning to create medical metaverse or medical digital twin. So yeah, there are lot of industry opportunities in this area. Another story is that I was identifying the top 10 occupations that was impacted by XR. But after that, I went to the actual factories. I visited Wichita, Kansas, which is the head of Boeing and Cessna Textron Aviation. But we were observing the entire system. They are actively using AR glasses in the complicated wiring process in the airplane, factory. So because the B2B, the professionals, they have high willingness to pay than the customers and the users. It's natural that there are a lot of opportunities in manufacture, medical, and marketing, other than entertainment. Yeah.
We have much more questions, many more questions. We have one from my colleague Celia Spoden, then one from Peter Mantello, and then there was also a hand in the back, I think. Yeah, Aline Olteanu, so one after the other.
Thank you very much for all of you for your wonderful presentations. My question is to Tanaka Kenji-san. I wondered, because he showed us the video of the twister, and I only read about it. It was really fascinating to see it. But as far as I know, this was also connected to telerobotics, right? Teleexistence, yeah. And so what I've read is that like teleexistence, telerobotics, and VR is very much connected in Japan. But listening to your presentations now, I had the impression that like VR has become an own thing, a separate thing. But also you mentioned that you also work in one of the moonshot projects, and they are like we have new concepts like cybernetic avatars, or more like and this always reminds me a little bit of telerobotics. And I just wonder if you could tell me like how, like where does this cybernetic avatar come from? How is this connected to telerobotics, and what your role plays virtual reality in this respect?
And the question about the future perspective of the teleexistence and
all this is connected, or if this is becoming like separate fields. It used to be connected, now it's becoming separate fields.
So I'm glad you know the concept of teleexistence, telerobotics, and telepresence was invented in the US, and teleexistence is invented by a Japanese professor in Japan, Susumu Tachi. But so I think they are closely connected. And one of the reasons why I wanted to begin the real-time portable volumetric capture was to realize the teleexistence. And teleexistence is also connected with the concept of metaverse and digital twin. And so I understand there are pieces and implementations so that we can have a future of connecting together or integrating together them all. Yeah, that's a short answer.
Yeah.
Mantello is next.
Very much for a very interesting two presentations or three presentations. My question is related to a story that just came out in the news media last week about two Harvard students who managed to hack the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and with writing a very simple code, they were able to connect it to a facial recognition search engine. And they were able to, as they walked down the street, they could identify people by name, their biographies, their addresses, through doing this simple hack. And they resultantly were called glassholes. So I'm wondering, what do you think, and what kind of steps would your companies take to prevent the malicious use of the technology? Because obviously, these two students were able to do that very simply. So to make sure that these technologies protect the privacy of individuals and doesn't allow for this kind of malicious use to take place.
To go first, tough question.
At least at Sony, we have some standard in releasing the services, cloud services, and software services solutions. But in addition to that, maybe we need to have inclusive, holistic guidelines that will be the industry standard or self-guidance. Especially we also have AI. So yeah, it takes time to, for example, release services or product if it includes AI, for example. But in addition to AI, maybe we need to have another standards to protect ourselves from those malicious attempts.
I think that it depends on the country. So I will talk about Japan because it's here in Japan. So I think that Japan is really strict for that kind of problems about new technology, I think. And of that, more, I think, more strict in the privacy and security side in Europe, I think. But in Japan, so many people are concerning about privacy and security and more any kind of crime things or like that. So, and I think that in Japan generally, the tech startups are annoying about government or some prediction of the bad future prevent their business. So startups are really concerning about that, and in Japan in general, the normal people, the ordinary people, talking about that kind of things, and so I think that for the tech industry, it's kind of a really big break for them. So that's why I'm involved in some industry organization about XR in Japan. So if the industry think they need to make their own guidelines by themselves, it's very important, right? Before the restriction of the law. It's a very powerful rule by the government, I think. So I think that in Japan, I think that kind of self defense is working, I think, or like that. So that's my answer.
This is Japanese iPhone, right? So if I take picture with this iPhone, just sounds so loud, right? So Japan government insisted Apple to do this. So maybe in Japan, all glasses, makes needs to be equipped with big light or maybe something like that. Yeah.
And shot the sound in smartphone like that. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case some people didn't know, like they are like legally like obligated to have this very, very loud shutter sound. And actually this came up when we were like planning the conference and such, because previously I had, of course, a German phone, and I was thinking about, oh, maybe we can use that to make pictures at the conference. But then I remembered, oh no, I have now a Japanese phone, and that's why when my husband takes photographs here of the talks and such, you always hear the shutter sound in the back because it's a Japanese phone, so it can't be helped, but it's for privacy, so it's all right, I think. So our next question is from Alin Oltianu.
Thanks very much. I'll stand up because I'm here in the back. Thanks. I enjoyed so much these talks. I will try to quickly lay out two questions that are, I think, in a targeted way addressing the first speaker, but I think I like to believe, I hope they're addressing the whole panel, not only, I think this could be my takeaway from these 2 days of workshop we had here. So first of all, as the first speaker noted, when he gave us this very insightful context of video gaming culture in Japan, and not only, you mentioned Japan is the culture, is the place of indie cultures. Indeed, yes, it is. And do forgive me, I'm speaking from ignorance here. I know nothing about Japan. But I get the sense that trends are very powerful in Japan, right? There's a tendency towards conformity, right? Something that makes Japan curiously similar to Germany, if I'm to speak in this context. Yeah, indeed. I would certainly stand by that. And I see here some implications of cultural conservatism for business, right? The fact that I think, would you agree that it is the case that Japan is the place for indie cultures because indie cultures quickly become mainstream, right? That's one strategy of flattening descent, make it mainstream, right? And now my second question, something that's been dawning me, and I would also like to, I would be very interested if I can get an answer from Nicole on this, knowing, having in mind her talk, the talk that she delivered today. Because I think I have the wariness that AI technology is developing as based on a crudely empiricist philosophy, right? I see that particularly in the dichotomization of, say, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, physical space and cyberspace, right? As if this would be two different types of ontologies. But the truth is that we have always populated our virtual cyber worlds, right? In this sense, metaverse is a new word for something very old. It's what we always did. We have always populated our virtualities. It is at least safe to assume that without a cognitive capacity for virtuality, there will be no consciousness, and much more than that, right? So I would say that technologies like VR and AR are actually collapsing the metaverse instead of bringing it into being, right? They collapse it by making certain virtual entities collectively visible, right? They are concretizing imaginations. So arguably, this has always been the work of human reasoning. Like with language, say, to begin with, has always been doing what VR and AR are doing. So I think for me, it's an important point here to keep in mind without being an engineer, right? So again, I'm talking from some ignorance. That I think that in the development of all kinds of AI technologies, I think an awareness should be maintained that the differences between, say, VR, the Turing machine, stuff like painting and human spoken language, are differences of degree, not differences of kind. Otherwise, we risk falling into, first of all, the temptation is, I think, a crude empiricism, right? As I mentioned, that the fact that the way in which I know my friend Peter over here is completely different than the way I know Pikachu, and that's false, right? Or that, of course, can be flipped around into some sort of heavy rationalism, right? And I think simplifying things a bit, the long history of modern science is pretty much an effort to criticize that distinction. Thank you.
You want to go first?
Okay, the first question is about the metaverse, right? Can you repeat the first question again? Sorry about that.
I'm sorry?
Can you summarize your first question for me?
My first question.
It's sorry, it's not metaverse. It's indie culture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, indie culture in Japan.
Because I'm wondering if Japan is a place of indie culture production, of pluralizations of culture through indie trends, because there's a recipe here for strong standardization, right? So as things branch out, they become mainstreamed very easily.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So I think it's a little bit different between the indie culture in Japan and the indie culture in US and Europe, I think. So I use the word doujin, and so it's not an indie, right? So it's kind of a amateur things like that. So in Japan, the indie developer, indie creators activity is rarely connected to business. So in Japan, about the gaming thing, in the gaming industry, the indie game is really new world for Japanese game industry, because the indie game developers in Japan are not monetized yet, since before the indie game concept coming in. So I think that it's a little bit different culture in Japan, but now government is now encouraging indie game developers officially now. So they got subsidies for indie game developers and game studios now. So I think that the culture is a bit changing. So that's the short answer for the first question. And the second question is for me or all of us? All of us. So.
Okay, I will try to keep it brief since we're already over time, but Yeah, of course. There's a lot of research on something like virtual reality actually not being that new, and this whole language of newness and innovation is very like in itself very ideological, very like this colonial settler language, like breaking bound like new new frontiers and like staking grounds and like bowing. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Adventure, yeah. And it's also something that usually men are more expected to do and women to a lesser degree. But what I think is, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely true. But when I'm thinking about like this event here, we have, of course, we have the opportunity to be visible to people online via Zoom. A few like years, maybe 10, 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible at all. They might be, if we had the equipment at that time, I'm not sure. I wasn't at the German Institute here at that time. I was still, I think, yeah, in school maybe. But we might have done like a sort of telephone conference call or something, and people would have been able to hear like the voices of the speakers, but they wouldn't have been able to see them. And here we see that these kind of new experiences really make a difference and really create new opportunities. Such events, like they wouldn't have been possible, and there has this huge push, has been this huge push during COVID for like virtual conferences, and we were already talking about teleexistence. And if we're now thinking about, I think Shingo-san showed this very clearly in his presentation, if people online would also be able to, like, as avatars, join us here in the space, the whole networking thing would also become totally different. I mean, it's kind of nightmarish to imagine a few hundred people's avatars like milling around here, and yeah, it would be very, very crowded. But still, it might also create new opportunities, and it is all based on things that were there before, but it might change our lives very profoundly. And I think that's also, I don't see any more raised hands. So, oh, there's one from the online audience. So,
Thank you. Yeah, we have a comment from Catherine Mesur, I think to Shun, because she says, bravo on presenting the importance of VTubers, because her students at UC Davis and Irvine, they're creating their own characters and interactions. So she's really thankful. And I'll pick one question because we don't have that much time. She's asking about the environmental impact of XR technologies, especially if they include AI. And I mean, that's all connected and it's already in the media how much energy it consumes, and maybe touch a little bit upon maybe how it consumes energy, maybe how it can save energy as well. Maybe Kenji?
And do both. I mean, by, for example, using Zoom conference, you can save the jet fuel, for example. You don't need to go abroad. And at the same time, you are using additional power, computing powers. So in general, by using AR and AR, VR technology, we can save energy. But we need to have a firm decision to have environment-friendly technologies in the VR and AR technology world.
I agree that, and without AI, I think so. AI needs so many energies now, and I don't know what will happen in the future, right? So everybody are now concerning about the consumption of AI server center or like that. So I thought it will improve and improve more, so more efficient, I think. And in general, XR is, yeah, we can we don't need to go there with VR and AR technology, right? So many people coming with avatars right here without any flight or right. So I think it can be better for environment. I think, yeah, I believe that.
we need to think not only on Excel, but also on other industries as well. Because, if we need to see people far away, you have to get on a plane, right? Yeah. But if you use Zoom or you're in a metaverse, you don't have to consume oils, right? So maybe it's only a balance. So, and I think metaverse. We think metaverse is a communication space, and we need communication more than ever. The war is going on everywhere, but in a metaverse, you can be anybody and connecting with anybody, far away. Even if you have creed, you don't have to say it, but you just connect on the anonymous place. So I think that's a good help for humanity. I think. Yeah.
I think that kind of criticism against the metaverse was also like ushered when Zuckerberg had this demo and everything looked like kind of underwhelming, and people were saying like, oh, the metaverse uses as much energy like as a small country, and then it looks like this, so what the hell. So I think this kind of criticism, it definitely exists and it has its place. So yeah. Are there any other questions? Or I'm looking at a lot of tired faces, so I think there have been some really tough questions, some really intense discussions. So I think it is now time to say goodbye to our online audience. I hope I see many of you tomorrow again for 3 more sessions on data and data valence, one on the future of our environment, and another one of about how we create the future in media. So I think this is also kind of related to what Shingo-san has been telling us. So good night, good day, whatever to our online audience.